Hey guys, Heavy Arms 45 here. Now, it's still Halloween time. We're counting our days down to when we don't be trying to figure out what costume, or you're probably already figuring out what costume you'll have your kids in as they just walk around the house or at least take photos for their friends to be put onto Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, all of them, you know. And so while planning this stuff, I figured that you could take time to listen to a little versus battle I have. Now, my versus battle is not unlike some of my other ones where it's dealing with a particular person. This one's gonna be going against a group. Well, a group versus a group. And two groups that I have in mind are the Parasites from Parasite Maximum and the Ghouls from Tokyo Ghoul. Both are generally silent killers. They work in the shadows. Um, they, for the most part, they're not really caught. It's hard to notice who they are because they just look like a regular person until they attack. Um, Now there's some people that can find out who they are easily, but it's not that many. It's very rare for somebody to know exactly who they are from seeing them. So, um, let's start talking about the parasites, because the parasites are basically translucent slugs that will crawl, like suddenly they open up in this pod. They try and jump in your nose and will, your nose or your ear, to get to your brain. And once it gets to the brain, it proceeds to eat you from the inside out until it becomes your actual head. And all this happens basically, seems like in the middle of the night. It gets, you might oversleep a little bit uh from it basically resting, and then you'll wake up and it knows everything you know. It remembers everything that's in your past. But they're a little bit unemotional. They don't understand human emotions for the most part. They are just straight dis it I want to say they're kind of straight logic. A plus B equals C. There's no other way to get to C besides A and B. And also they're cannibals. They're cannibals to whatever they uh took over body. So if they take over human body, they are human cannibal. I mean, they only want to eat humans. Um, which they also are shown that they can't eat regular food, but humans are the only thing that seems to sustain them. Um, while you have on the other side, there was one that turned into a dog, and he only ate dogs. Um, but yeah, but like I said, they don't understand emotion, so they rarely use emotion. They're just completely blanking the way they look, and most people just don't think about it. They're like, this person just haven't been feeling well. Some tragedy must have happened in life. We try to, even in real life, we try to explain away why somebody is not looking happy or being seem like they're upset over something, because you know we feel like we're sensitive to other people's emotions. And for her, you're not. I mean, for um the ghoul, I mean, for the parasites, you're not sensitive to their emotion. They're literally not caring what you're saying. They're trying to hold a conversation with you to seem normal, but no, they're just being themselves. On the other side, you have the ghouls. The ghouls have all human emotions, but they cannot eat human food. You can become a ghoul by two different ways. You can be born a ghoul, which is basically like being born as a vampire. You can be a naturally born ghoul where your parent was ghoul, probably their parent was ghoul, and they, like I said, they can't eat human food. Human food tastes like trash to them, and it's kind of like a poison to them. Because I think each time they try to eat it, they get sicker, and they'll puke the food up. And then when uh they try to yeah, and then also it makes them more hungry for uh humans, because that's the only thing that ghouls actually eat. But you also find out that they don't have to eat, their bloodlust isn't that long. Like, they could probably feed on one person, or uh coffee also helps. Coffee mixed with a little bit of human blood sometimes helps, I believe, because they had like little sugar cubes that had little red streaks on them. And I think that was like little bits of blood that they put in, but it helped the situation. They are being hunted down this show, but for the most part, you don't know who in the world is a ghoul until you attack them. Um, with them, if you attack them, they have tentacles, and all of them have varying types of tentacles that do different things. And they can attack with their tentacles. They're fast, um, they're agile, and yeah. Um, and now that I talked about tentacles, I realized that I didn't tell you what the main problem with the parasites were. The parasites on the other side has a head that basically splits open, and it can basically turns into metal tendrils that basically can cut just about anything that it runs into. So let's see, between the two of them, who would win. Now, when I talk about the parasites, I do have to clarify that while I say that their head, they do have a human head. I mean, their head is no longer human. So the whole top of the head is a parasite, but the rest of the body is still human. So since the rest of the body is human, the best way to kill them, you would think, is to attack the human parts of them, which you would be right. And you will be wrong at the same time. Because there are parasites that have made, I guess you could say, a colony. Instead of them being just one parasite, there are multiple parasites where, like, one parasite ate this man's head, another parasite ate this guy's arm, another parasite ate the guy's other arm, one parasite ate the guy's legs, and possibly another parasite ate the guy's torso. So all five of them working together, and there actually was one who did that, and it's kind of like each one of them submits to one particular parasite, and he's the controller of the whole thing. And most time, he's the one that's the head that basically tells what the rest of the body to do, and the rest of them submit to his will, to where he's the one who can keep everybody in control, because it's a weird way of trust between them. And that's interesting, to say that they're able to colonize into one particular group. Now, dealing with who would win this fight, um, I would have to say that uh, the ghouls would win. And that's not because I think that Ken Konaki and his crew is actually uh, great, but it's dealing with the strongest part of a parasite. Unless you get that one particular parasite that has a eaten every single part of this person's body, to where the whole body is a parasite. All of them's weakness is their human parts. They can't grow back their human parts. We did have in Parasite, because the whole point of Parasite is that the guy who this guy had got a parasite in his hand. He literally at one point lost his heart. He had it stabbed through. and his parasite literally had to go through and like repair his um repair his chest and get his heart, fix his heart for him and all this stuff. And he was able, but that took days and a lot of work. Like, you notice that uh it took some time. He didn't just like all of a sudden after this happened, they were able to grow it back immediately. While if you look at when a parasite is fighting with their weapons, like if some part of them gets cut off, they're somewhat fine. They can kind of merge whatever left back together and like fix it, but they're pretty much fine. Um, I think there was even one time where somebody got hit with a baseball bat in the head that was a parasite. You saw the dent, and then the dent just popped out. You know, and also they can separate themselves. They can separate parts of themselves. So let's say you did cut one off, it can join the rest of them in a second because each one of them still has somewhat like a link to the original one, unless it gets small enough to where it can't continue sending a communication to them. So, but the point is, the parasites are very strong. They are quick with their reflex and everything. Um, and so it's it is while they can protect their head, and because their tentacles are very fast, they can use to protect the rest of their body fairly well. Um, but that's because they're so frail from the neck down. They can't, like, if you did take out any part of them from the neck down, they're pretty much damaged. While on the other side of it, um, Ken Kaneki and all them, they can regenerate, and it does take time, but they can take more damage on their general body for the most part than the parasites can. So the ghouls have somewhat of an advantage just because they can take damage and keep going for the most part. Um, don't get me wrong. The speed of the ghouls, I mean of the parasites, tentacles, are very impressive. And the most part is if you had both of them run into each other, um, for the most part, just like I said, you wouldn't know from first sight which one was the parasite and which one is the ghoul until they start fighting each other. Like, think about it. The actually that might be interesting because the fun thing about ghouls is that they can smell humans and they can tell for the most part who is in their group of human, well, who is human, because they get this bloodlust for them. So the question would be, I guess, would a ghoul have the desire for a parasite? Because the parasite, like I said, the head is not human. So would a ghoul be able to notice a parasite's unnatural head? Because yes, the rest of the body is technically human, but it would be a question of could they sense that there was something different? Because they do have a bloodlust, but it's not like a lot of ghouls eat other ghouls. On certain occasions, some do, but you know, it's not normal for them to do that. And it's the same with parasite. Parasites don't eat other parasites. They may kill another parasite, but they don't eat another parasite. Most of them are just trying to survive. Especially if you go to the end of the show where like basically it comes to realization that they're still out there, but they're able to blend in a lot more because they're able to eat human food. They'll go out and eat, might do like most of us do on our apps, go on Tinder or something like that, find a date. Next thing you know, they go on this date and they're never seen again. Why? Because they got ate by a parasite. While on the ghoul on the other side, ghouls are actively being hunted because no one knows how many ghouls there are out there. Um, and no one knows. Uh, there are some exceptions to the rule because the ghouls did find ways of trying to overtly get their human bloodlust in control. Well, under control by like they went to places where people they knew was committing suicide all the time, and they would just like pick up a body from there, like they were going to a grocery store, and that brought down on the amount of people that were um, being eaten just like on the streets and stuff like that. So that is the interesting part of it. Um, but just meeting each other, that like I said, it would be interesting of knowing if a ghoul could recognize that there's something not quite right about this Paris about this guy, and you come to find out that this guy has a parasite for a head. That would be very interesting to see. Um, but at the same time, I still have to give it um to the ghouls just because their their bodies are a lot more durable, which means they can they're durable and they have a good amount of endurance. A lot of them have taken a lot of damage, and eventually they'll probably regenerate it. But taking the damage and being able to keep going, even in times like that, um, as you can remember, if you've watched Tokyo Ghoul, King Kaneki sat there and had his leg completely twisted when he was fighting Jason. And he basically twisted himself back, basically healing the whole time, and whooped Jason's tail. Had spikes through his leg. And later on, he just none of that stuff was wrong with him later on. He like almost instantly he was able to heal up. But that also I think took a lot of his strength to be able to do something like that. Um and we're not gonna talk about the whole thing of where King Kaneki well, I'll talk about it, but it's not it's kinda like the exception, kinda like the whole idea of a parasite who multiple parasites taking over one body. Um when King Kaneki literally grew himself into being like this giant monster that like covered all of Tokyo. You know, those are extreme things, but just a generic ghoul versus a generic um parasite, I give it to the ghouls. Well, I think that's I keep saying that over and over, and I think that's the best answer I can give. If you can give me a better reason why a parasite would be the ghoul, I I'd be happy to hear it. And I'll catch you later.